It's been quite a few days since I last uploaded a video on YouTube, and that's because I was away for a few days, personal stuff, and now I honestly could not make my first video after a few days without talking about what's been happening with Zyberswap because lots of drama has occurred ever since I released my first video on these guys versus now. So I still stick to my guns that this is a very strong project with huge upside potential. And right now, when it comes to what really matters, it's performing really well. So that's what I'm gonna be discussing mainly here. Okay, first things first, let's recap a bit about what caused this recent avalanche of FUD, sell pressure, so on and so forth. So it all started when the first IDO on the launchpad was announced, and I'm talking about AutoDCA. Now, AutoDCA, if you don't know who they are basically a project that lets you automatically DCA into specific tokens or coins. If you want to know more about them, and they have a governance token, so DCA, if you want to know more about them, I suggest you to watch the video I made about them. And that was the last one I uploaded. Actually, the one before the last one I uploaded. So, when the first IDO was announced, I'm gonna go over to the ZIB price token chart. I think the price was about 3-ish, so to speak. Now you can clearly see how the run-ups are happening. So here it's when V3 launched. Here is when the first IDO was announced. Now, in order to participate in IDOs on Zyberswap, I also mentioned it in my first video, you need to lock up a certain X amount of ZIP tokens and then you can participate. Now, the huge drama that occurred then is that as soon as AutoDCA launched their token, it dumped all the way to 0.001. So a bit less than that, actually, if you can clearly see the bottom right here. So it dropped more than 80% on its launch day during the first hour or two. Now, this is mainly due to a couple of things. One is that the raise was a bit high, so 750k was actually acquired by the AutoDCA team, and I can clearly say that this is something that was supposed to be revised more, right? So I think the raise was a bit higher than expected, and because of this, the market cap started approximately, if I were to compare what the price is right now to what the price was when it launched, it started at more than 2.5 million, which is actually pretty decent for a startup project. So it's not a small market cap from that point of view. From a project that doesn't have so much exposure, but that's beside the point. The avalanche of sells happened because of panic, and it's unjustified, and it's based on just one person who made a very tiny amount of profit, and boom, it all cascaded down, and then the blame went to the Zyberswap team. Now I'm gonna pull out a few messages that I saw on Telegram. I've been monitoring this, honestly, not so closely, but here and there, so to speak. So lots of people started questioning the viability of the team, and they started fighting that nobody cares about the investors in Zyberswap, that they didn't do a lot of due diligence, etc., etc. So you can clearly see the vibe behind those messages, and there are so many more. And even right now, if I go on Telegram, you can clearly see that there's a lot of, similar messages being, put out there. So the blame at the end of the day is not on the investors themselves, it's always on the team. So the investors are expecting to put in X amount of money, and then they expect a profit, and that is what crypto isn't about. So it's not about profit expectancy from a third party that tells you this. It's not centralized, because if it was, then it's a security, and that's not what we want, right? So we want the complete opposite of this. So nobody should tell you where you should put your money, and you should make that decision. Now, with that being said, The next IDO they have on a project called Cool, and this is essentially a marketplace. I started researching the project because I'm planning to make a video on this, and it will most probably be the next one. So it's a marketplace for NFT games as well as NFTs in game that they can be resold on their marketplace. So it's a place for both gamers and developers if they want to bring their games for people to play them or even develop their own using their platform. So it's a cool concept. We're gonna get into this later. Now going back here, so the next one will have a much smaller raise with a better tokenomics, so to speak, and from a team that is not only building but is also getting more exposure. So what I expect is to have a nice run up in the token price, because we also don't know what are the new requirements. So the community actually made a few proposals. So I expect that for the next one, at least next IDO, no other than ZIP holders will be able to contribute, and that's what we all want. And that is the infrastructure that will keep the token afloat, because I'm not gonna even discuss the price action. Price action is driven by emissions that are being sold from people providing liquidity. So this is not a question that people should be asking, why is the price dropping? The price holds if there are more requirements to hold the token, to expect better profits elsewhere, and to stake them to also earn good returns on your stake. So if I go right here and I click on stake, you can clearly see that you can earn upwards of 16% in ETH if you stake your ZIP. So that's pretty cool, right? But I want to shift now to what really matters when it comes to a DEX like Zyberswap. So if you are an investor in the protocol or in the native asset, you should not look on the performance of the ZIP token. This is something that you shouldn't be looking at, and that's my personal opinion, because there are so many other factors that you should be watching. This isn't your typical yield farm driven by token inflation supply. Now, yes, of course, there are emissions because that's the goal. The total supply is capped at 20 million, and after that, there won't be any ZIP to go around. And until then, this will be distributed to LP holders. Now, let's look at the things that we should actually be looking at. Okay, so one very nice tool that I like to use is DeFi Llama. One thing I want to mention is that Zyberswap operates on Arbitrum. Arbitrum is second in terms of 24-hour and weekly volume when it comes to chain comparison, blockchain comparison. So this is very important. Why? The more money that is being exchanged on a certain blockchain, then means that there's more money to go around in their top protocols, in the chain's top protocols. All right, so that's very important. So building on whatever I just said, by the way, TVL is close to third or fourth place. So if I go right now, DeFi chains, so that's the overview, you will see that Arbitrum's total value locked and active users is actually fourth after BSC and of course ETH. No, I don't think any chain will dethrone ETH in terms of total value locked. And those two chains are pretty old compared to Arbitrum that rose to fame very recently, so that's pretty impressive as well. So building on this, if I go to DEXs on Arbitrum, Zyberswap sits second to Uniswap in terms of 24-hour volume. So if you do the quick comparison in terms of 24-hour volume, you can clearly see that it has almost 10x less, and the third contender has almost 50% less in terms of volume. So exposure is out there. People are going on Zyberswap to trade their assets. That's impressive. Second metric, look at the volume to TVL. And that is also something I always focus on. If it's above 1, then it's pretty impressive. Meaning, you have volume that is generating fees. You have people who are providing liquidity pairs, and these people are being provided by a portion of the fees. So the more the higher that number is, the better it is for LP providers, and hence more people are gonna get attracted to come to Zyberswap. don't look at the, you know, outliers, for example 544. Those are only so the smaller dexes have huge outliers of volume to TVL due on, for example, a quick or a huge stable swap of a few millions, and then it pops up on DeFi Llama. Focus on the steady, and I've been following the steady volume to TVL ratio. I can tell you straight up that Zyberswap is keeping up from 0.9 to 1.5 for a, you know, extended period of time. So second only to Uniswap. And why is it also better than Uniswap? It's because you can not only earn fees from the LP you're providing in the V3 model, you know, the concentrated liquidity model, you can also stake or leverage the farm, the manual farms, and earn additional ZIP tokens. So you have a win-win situation where you're getting fees in a volume to TVL ratio very close to Uniswap, plus you can also get extra ZIP tokens. You can either sell them, of course, if you wish to, but the price is quite low for that in my opinion, or you can utilize them to enter future IDOs. Requirements to come soon. All right, so that's pretty good. Don't focus too much on the APR here, for example, for wrapped ETH USDC, because it's at the end of the day, this amount of tokens will be distributed based on your share of the whole total value locked inside this pool. So don't focus too much on that number, focus on that number and how much you own of the total amount that is locked here. All right, so let me do a quick summary for you to understand where your focus should be. One, the Zyberswap DEX relies on real yield, not inflation yield. All right, that's pretty important. You can argue that there's a bit of that, but the main aspect is real yield generated from swaps, at least as of now. Secondly, you have very impressive volume metrics. And capitalizing on this, you have a very good TVL to volume ratio. And what is most important, and perhaps the cherry on top, is that you have a team that is working endlessly to provide more value and that is very responsive on the chat, contrary to what people were saying. So one last thing before I end this, I want to say that they actually listen to people, and because they don't want to go through and rush the second IDO, Cool's IDO, they decided to postpone it a bit to actually, you know, fully cover all the loopholes in their new structure. And I'm sure they're gonna come up with a good one after so many proposals and stick with it. They exceeded 2 billion lifetime volume, so go ahead, check the pin message. All right, there are so many good announcements coming up, and they want to also bridge to one of the latest and most promising blockchains called Zcasing. So I think with that I will end this here. Of course, this is all my opinion. Those are the things I'm looking at. I'm not telling you to do the same. I'm just putting it out there for people to have, you know, more exposure and more things to look forward to besides the token price action. And with that, I wish you a good day. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you lasted all the way through. See you on the next one. Have a good one.